Egyptian pyramids and slaves. The idea that the pyramids in Egypt were built by slaves working for a cruel and merciless pharaoh goes back to the ancient historian Herodotus. In his history, he wrote about the construction of the Cheops pyramid. Cheops plunged the country into an abyss of disaster. First of all, he ordered the closure of all sanctuaries and prohibited sacrifices. Then he forced all the Egyptians to work for him. Thus, some were obliged to drag huge blocks of stones from quarries in the Arabian mountains to the Nile. The stones were transported across the river on ships, while others were ordered to drag them further to the so-called Libyan mountains. 100,000 people performed this work continuously, changing every 3 months. It took 10 years for the exhausted people to build the road along which these stone blocks were dragged. Herodotus' story is the only written source that described the technology for building the Egyptian pyramids. Considering how authoritative Herodotus' history has been for centuries, it is not difficult to see why his presentation has proven so influential. To this day, many films are being made and books are being written that talk about suffering slaves languishing under the dictatorship of a pharaoh who builds pyramids for his own pleasure. The idea of the pyramids was also influenced by Christianity. The story of the exodus of the Jews from Egypt, exhausted by the cruelties of the pharaoh, only strengthened the belief in the ruthlessness of the ancient Egyptian rulers. The problem, however, is that Herodotus, although he had visited Egypt, did not know the Egyptian language and was forced to rely only on the information that local Greek settlers told him. Moreover, Herodotus lived 2,000 years after the construction of the Great Pyramids, so in any case, his ideas about the construction of pyramids are largely arbitrary. But the work of Herodotus greatly outlived the author, and stories following the historian's ideas can still be found in modern history textbooks. For example, in a textbook on the history of the ancient world 2015 edition by Alexei Vygasin, Doctor of Historical Sciences and employee of Moscow State University, Herodotus is quoted and says that the people were exhausted from backbreaking labor and the deprivations to which the pharaohs doomed them. However, historians and archaeologists have found through research that this is not true. Thanks to the efforts of Egyptologists such as Zahi Hawass and Mark Lenner, much information has been gained about how the pyramids were built, aided by new archaeological finds. In the early 1990s, several settlements were excavated in which the pyramid builders lived. Burials of builders were also found. A meticulous study of their lifestyle and burial features confirmed the long-standing guesses of Egyptologists. The builders were not slaves, but were hired to work voluntarily. At the same time, their work was highly respected in society. This became clear due to the way the remains of the builders were buried. Life for construction workers was certainly not easy. However, their needs and hardships were treated with understanding. The remains of the workers indicated that they received serious medical care, thanks to which they survived injury and illness. Historian Mark Lenner suggests that the structure of ancient Egyptian society was somewhat reminiscent of feudalism, and that each member of society had to pay back a kind of tax. This tax could be paid not only in money, but also in labor, which served as a motivation for many Egyptians to hire out for the construction of the pyramid. However, it cannot be said that this was a form of slavery. Back was an obligation even for high-ranking nobles. In any case, modern historical science is convinced that the builders of the pyramids were not slaves. What remains a mystery is the method of construction of such grandiose structures. Historians have not yet reached a consensus on this matter.